First thing I did was I got a dust buster, or a little portable vacuum cleaner, and I sucked up some bees. And there you can see them inside the dust buster container that they're going to die now. I'm going to take them, and you can see I put the little bit of duct tape on the end of the dust buster, and I removed this from the dust buster, and I put it in my deep freeze overnight, and I got left with a bunch of dead bees. And as long as the queen wasn't in there, not a big deal. So you grab yourself I grabbed myself about 25 of those bees. I got myself an X-Acto blade, and I just snapped off the end of it, and I started cutting off the abdomens from the honeybees' bodies until I was left with about 25 abdomens. And then I put them in a mortar and pestle, and then I started to squish them up. So that's 25 honeybee abdomens all squished up. And as soon as you squish them, it starts to stink because it's their digestive system. Guess what's inside the digestive system? So for each bee, I sucked up 25. For each bee, I sucked up 1 milliliter of water. And so that's 25 bees. So I got 25 milliliters of water, added to that gunky, gross paste of bees, and I put it back into the mortar and pestle, and I squished it up even more, and mixed it up real good until it was a nice, stinky, gross mess like this. Then I got myself another, I guess it was a pipette, but it's basically a big eyedropper, and you suck up that junk. And then I put it on a slide, and this slide it's a specific name for this type of thing. It's got a etched in basically graph paper outline, I guess you would say, etched into the slide so you can see it microscopically, and you use it to count the number of spores in the samples. And so this is after I put in the goop into the slide. And then you put that little protective piece of glass over top of it, a piece of plastic. And there it is. Yip-de-doo. And here we go. Under the microscope. This is a microscope with 400 magnification. That's what you need. And what can I say about the microscope? I got one secondhand. It's an old one, probably 20 years old or so. It's a bit dusty and dirty, but it gets the job done. You can get cheap microphones. You can get a cheap microphone too if you want to, but you can get a cheap microscope on Amazon for, I think, under $200 now. I've never tried one, but I guess as long as you got 400 magnification, you're good to go. One that has an output for video or photo would be great, because in order for me to get, say, this photo, I just had to stick my camera down the barrel of the microscope, and it's a bit complicated, or it can be complicated. It's a bit tricky. And so here we go. We've got all these little bits of ricey things. The big ones here. These are pollen bits, but bits of various types of pollen. But all those little things of rice that look like rice, that's nosema. And it's not great finding nosema, but nosema is present all the time in the bees' environment. It's out there. It's just a spore that they pick up, sort of like the common cold, but it affects their guts, their digestive system. And when the bees are healthy and flying around in the summertime, in the springtime, they're outside, they're drinking water, and they're constantly using their digestive systems. They're constantly clearing out all their guts. They're pooping everywhere, basically. And as long as they're drinking liquid and nectar and everything else, it just goes right through them, and it's constantly cleaning out all this junk. And so even if the spores are in their guts, they're constantly being flushed out just through natural, digestive processes. But going into winter, they can't do that. They can't fly. They're stuck inside. So it just builds up. And if the bees can't hold it in any longer and they poop inside the hive, then the spores get pooped out inside the hive. And because the bees are hygienic, they'll try to clean up all that poop. And then in cleaning up the poop, it spreads the spores around even more. And if there's a lot of moisture inside the hive, those spores will actually thrive. This is why there's a bit of a debate between wet hives or condensing hives and dry hives or well-ventilated hives, because when the poop gets out there, if it's in a dry hive, it'll dry up, and even if the bees try to clean it, the spores don't really propagate well. That's a debate. That's debatable. But in any case, this is what happens. The bees, they get sick, and the nosema builds up because they can't get out and poop in the winter, and they get sick and they die. And here you can see the graph, or the etched in thing that I was talking about. And so you would count the number of spores in a specific number of these squares. I don't know what the exact number is. There's a protocol for it, and I provided a link to the exact protocol that you should follow if you're trying to get precise numbers for this type of thing. And in this case, I wasn't, because I know what I'll show you what I'll show you what a diseased, a fully, now there's still like a fair bit of nosema here. It's a bit alarming, but I've seen worse, and the bees seem to come out fine. But this is a full blown colony that had nosema. And it died. There's a process for counting this precisely, but this is what it looks like. You can see the difference. So here we get the nosema spores. They're there. They're definitely there, but they're just sort of spread out. They're not packed together like they are in this slide. But you can really see the difference between, say, something like that. It's like, okay, the nosema's there, not great, but whoa, they're everywhere in this slide. And this is when you're in trouble. You see this, you know you're in trouble. You see this, and you go, okay, they've got it. Let's be careful. Let's make sure that they're healthy going into the winter. Give them some, there is a natural medication that you can give them that prevents the reproduction of the spores. So if they get through the winter, it's not going to get worse in the winter. So in the spring, they'll come out and they'll do their normal thing and poop it all out. Or in the winter time, they'll get out on warm days and still poop out all those bad spores inside their guts. So I just wanted to take a quick look. I didn't make an exact count because I know the difference. I've seen this and I know this is bad, and I see this and I go, okay, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's not that, right? So that's all I need to know. I don't need to get an exact count. I just need to know, like, bam, there it is. And that's not scientific, and scientists will tell you, no, you got to count them. No, I'm not counting them, but do what you want to do. So that's what I did, and so there you go. This can be done again with. I think you can get brand new microscopes for about $200 that should be able to get away with doing this. You might even get them cheaper. But if you go for a real microscope that looks like a microscope, not some little dinky toy thing, you should be able to get an idea of what kind of spore count that you have inside your hives. And that's it. That's what I did. And I'm going to try to check out some of my other hives if I can. But I think it's getting too late in the year to just start. Unless there's like a really warm day and they're out flying, I think I'm just going to leave them alone. But anyway, so that's it. And so all I can say about the whole nosema thing too, let's just look at that ugly looking slide again, is that, like, even if they have nosema, it's not the end of the world. As long as, like, say in the spring, if I know a colony has nosema, I'll give them some nice thin sugar syrup, and if it's warm, that sugar syrup will go right through their digestive systems. They'll go outside and poop it all away, and they'll just keep flushing out their guts with that clean, thin syrup, and then they're off to the races, and most of the spores will have been flushed out of their system by then. So don't knock sugar syrup. Some people will think that sugar syrup is unnatural and it's evil and all this other stuff, but it's not. There's a place for it. So in the sugar syrup will go right through them, better than anything, even better than honey, because honey actually has an ash content. It has some solids in it that can actually block up their digestive tracts if their digestive tracts are already full of nosema. So you just give them nothing but sugar syrup, which has absolutely nothing in it, just nothing but sugar, and it just goes right through them, and they're clean and good, and off you go. So as long as the bees can clean out their digestive tracts, they should be pretty clear of nosema, and they should be pretty healthy. I've been beekeeping since 2010, and the first time I had nosema that killed a colony was 2 years ago. And so now, just to be safe, I've got hold of a used microscope, and I'm going to take a nosema count whenever I can. So there you go, nosema under a microscope.